What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're here with a showcase video for Final Tap Lore. This unit is definitely the one that I think is the best of the three that will probably see the most usage as time progresses. I think this lore is a fantastic unit, so without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's go ahead and talk about the positives and the negatives of this character whilst using him since the Sugo Fest debuted not that long ago. So, first of all, his captain effect's really good. It's a very simple, very basic captain effect, but it's good. It's a 5x boost to Dex, Slasher, and Cerebral characters, so he hybrids really, very well. You could hybrid up with like Goldie Roger, for example, probably one of the best characters to hybrid with. You could use Queen as well once that eventually comes out, and also CP0 Lucci, really good Dex captains to use alongside him, but any other really good Cerebral or Slasher captain is a good hybrid for this unit. This lore just helps out so many different teams. His special as well, which we'll talk about in a moment, also helps all the different teams that he will be boosting with his captain effect. So it's a great kit on this character. Also providing 1.3 health is nice, just to get just a little bit of additional tankiness. Strength and quick slots are counted as beneficial to your crew as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't make Dex slots beneficial. I wish he did, because the support Sengoku synergy with this character would have been absolutely absurd. But weirdly enough, he doesn't make Dex beneficial as a captain, but in his crewmate effect, he actually does make Dex beneficial, meaning his usage as a sub is actually pretty good. And then his captain effect further will give you 0.5 times recovery heal every time you hit a perfect, meaning if you have double lore, you're healing for pretty substantial amounts. So captain effect just across the board is just phenomenal, really great captain. And then his super type, of course, which you get access to as a captain, which will go ahead and give a 25% heal to your crew that has the opportunity to overheal. So you can overheal and just utilize that. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to overheal for the rest of the turn, so if you hit like with a recovery slot or with any other healing special that does not overheal, only the super type effect will enable the overheal, unfortunately. But he does help out the rest of your crew as well, because he does change block orbs into matching, and he locks your orbs for one turn. So any situation on the final boss fight, the enemy gives you, those full board of block orbs, you can just use your super type to change them into matching for you. Just a really great just effect that he has that can be used on a lot of different teams in a lot of different situations against heaps of different bosses. The only real thing about his super type that's kind of annoying though is his condition. You need to have one of the supernovas on your team in order to actually use it. So I'm not a big fan of that specifically. I would have preferred it if it was like a condition you had to fulfill throughout a fight, or like maybe you had to overheal once throughout a fight. That could have been interesting, because you have to use his super type nearing full HP, meaning, you didn't have to, just subject yourself to running a certain team composition in order to get his super type to be activated. But it also does give you an ore block as well, which I think is a great addition, allowing you to lock slots over multiple rooms. Even if you're not using it to change block slots into matching, you can still use it if you have like a full board of matching slots. You can keep it for multiple different rooms. A really nice addition to the unit for sure. But then we get to the best part of Trafalgar lore, the Final Tap lore, and that is his special ability. His special is so insane, right? First of all, it's an HP dealing special, it's a 10% health cut, and it does go through all defensive effects. So that's a nice touch, meaning any damage dealing special is a nice one to have, because it does enable you to use some certain supports which you wouldn't be able to use otherwise. So you could use, for example, like Super Type Zoro, which could attach to him, that would enable you to get an orb boost, and then obviously with lore you get all of those other boosts that he does provide. So in terms of his other boosts, he does go ahead and change his own slot, including block, into a Dex slot, which is good for, once again, support Sengoku, which we touched up on, because support Sengoku, for those who don't know, if you use it on a damage dealing special, it does only attach to lore, I believe, and maybe one other character, but if you use a damage dealing special, it changes whatever orb that character that he's supported to currently has to the rest of your crew. So if lore gets a Dex slot, everyone on your crew gets a Dex slot as well, and it gives you a 0.7 chain boost. Now that's great, because as a crewmate, he does make Dex beneficial, so you can get those full board of Dex slots, chain boost, and then of course all of the other additional effects with his special. So Lore's special also gives a 2.75 times attack boost to Dex, Slasher, and Cerebral characters. So that's already amazing, and then if that wasn't enough, they just decided to give him one of the most absurd effects that we've seen in the special, like, since the game's inception, is to grant a buff, or a debuff really, to the enemy that goes through immunity, which is the increased damage taken debuff. So it grants a 1.5 times additional piece of damage to any enemy inflicted with it, and it does bypass any immunity that they have. So with Super Type Kaido that had released earlier this year, he does grant a 2 times increased damage taken debuff to the enemy, but if they have full immunity, you can't do anything about that. Whereas Law, he does not care. He is guaranteed to get that damage off. So special grants an attack boost at 2.75 nonetheless, right? Plus an additional 50% bonus to whatever damage that you're doing. So he hits very, very hard. Plus he has the capabilities of changing slots. He has a potential to have like different crazy supports, like Orb Boost with Super Type Zoro, or Chain Boost with supports in Goku. There's lots of things that this character can do to enhance your damage on your team, which is so good, and why I like this character so much. Some other nice things about this character is that he has Barrier Penetration, which is probably one of the best limit break potential abilities in the entire game. Just making sure that no matter what the situation is, Law is always going to do his damage through barriers. Obviously, he doesn't go through all defensive effects with his normal attacks, but still going through barriers is a huge addition to the unit. Also, his other potential ability is Recovery Bind, which obviously helps with his healing as a captain. Every time you hit a perfect, you heal half of his recovery back, and if you have Recovery Bind, you can help just make sure that recovery actually does land and you are getting some health back every time you hit a perfect. And of course, we can not talk about Law if we can't talk about the supports, right? He gets access to some pretty good support units. We've already touched up on a couple with Super Type Zoro and Support Sengoku, but other utility based ones you could potentially use Corazon, and Corazon is amazing. There are 2 different ones that would come to mind. The obviously one, the Sugo Fest exclusive, which gets rid of Bind, Despair, and Paralysis, but there's also the special time limited rare recruit character that grants attack down and bind removal by 2 turns, so that's obviously huge. And then there's also access to some Beppo supports. There's also Perispero, who attaches to a Cerebral unit and locks Cerebral characters' orbs for 1 turn. So hypothetically, if you wanted to save the Super Type for another stage to change block slots into matching, you could use Support Sengoku, or Support Perispero, should I say, to lock your orbs instead, depending on the situation at hand. So obviously there is so much to talk about in terms of his positives, and then let's talk about his negatives, his cons. Now, the thing is I was really grasping at straws, trying to figure out what I didn't like about this character, because to be honest, there's a lot of things about this character that I really do like. We will talk about his final tap in just a moment, but just briefly, kind of just nitpicking at kind of things that I didn't like about the unit. There is going to be a new debuff coming soon, which will go ahead and negate any type of health cutting mechanic, which of course with his special and with his final tap, that's going to mitigate the amount of damage you can get off of that. Also, his special doesn't change all slots. It would have been interesting if his special had an effect that could change like all slots into Dex or something like that, but nonetheless, it's still a really good effect. And then also his captain effect doesn't make Dex beneficial. The fact that he makes his crewmate and just makes Dex beneficial, but then he doesn't do it as a captain, considering he makes Strength and Quick already beneficial as a captain, I think is like super weird. I feel like Strength, Dex, and Quick should have been matching, or maybe just Dex. But then again, having Strength and Quick slots matching is really nice. Grants you just a higher chance of getting matching slots. So again, I'm just nitpicking at different things that I don't like. And I guess like the final nitpick, I guess, is the fact that you have to hit perfects in order to heal. Like, as I said, this character is good in so many different ways, and there really isn't a lot about this unit that I would consider to be bad. This is definitely one of the better Sugo Fest exclusives in the game, and I definitely think it's the best of the 3 currently released Super Sugo units. But of course, let's talk about Law's final tap. So final tap, I probably will make an additional video about final tap in general, but his final tap with Law has the highest damage potential out of pretty much all legends in the game, with all things considered. You know, you've got his 20% cut, he's also got the 3 times conditional, he's got the 1.5 increased damage taken, 2.75 attack boost, and that's all coming from 1 unit. So Law hits very hard. But one thing you have to remember is that the immunity that on enemies can actually negate the conditional boost that his final tap would normally provide. So that is obviously quite a big hindrance to the final tap in general. And another thing as well is that Law, you know, with final tap level 5, does allow you to get a 20% health cut, and it does go through normal attacks only, by the way. But again, one thing you have to remember is the fact that the 20% health cut is 20% of the current HP of the character. So you have to attack with 5 other units before the final tap becomes active. So by the time you get to that last character, a lot of the enemy's HP is likely gone missing at that point, meaning that the 20% health cut that Law would normally provide isn't going to be as substantial as you think. You know, if they've only got like 20% remaining anyway, you're not really going to be cutting off that much of their health. So it's not a super amazing effect when you really think about it, but in certain situations, yeah, getting that just a little bit of extra bonus damage is always nice to see. Obviously, the final tap is fantastic against Super Boss Kizunas, which obviously we're going to be getting very, very soon. But in the grand scheme of things, final tap is not the end-all be-all. You do not need final tap in order to clear content, at least not yet, and I really hope that never becomes the case. So I wouldn't go crazy about spending last tap tablets pulling for dupes for these 3 particular units that have debuted in this Sugo Fest on Global. I just do not think that they are overly worth it, and the final tap is, while it is really, really cool and it's awesome to flex, especially if you do have it rainbowed out at level 5, it's definitely not a requirement in order to get through content, so you don't need to stress about it too much. But that is going to end this video today, guys. Really hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure you go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all of the content that I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But other than that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.